Everybody hit okay on the recording. Okay, so let's discuss how to make that lead vocal pop. In the case of this vocal, it's a soft vocal, very similar to what Julius is having with the female vocalist he's working with. So let me add the rhythm guitar, both rhythm guitars, so you have something to contrast the vocal against. And then we have the lead vocal, and then I did a track duplicate, and then the duplicate's here, and I'm processing the duplicate differently than the main vocal. So this is the main vocal without anything inserted. Okay, so then now I'm going to flip. I'm going to add the subtractive EQing I did, add the de-esser, add the compression, and add the air band EQ, which is basically pushing, that's 40K up there, and with a shelving of 2.5K. And this you guys have on as a UAD plugin. This is really good for vocals.
It's muted.
Say what?
No, yeah, like I say, it's muted.
Yeah. So then now let me turn this EQ on and off, and you can hear the difference. So having the proper EQ and top end EQ helps open it up. But if you are now fighting multiple instruments and you get to verse 2 and there's all this, now you hear that the vocal is kind of struggling to have all the clarity. It's still loud enough that it sits in front of the instruments, but not necessarily as present as I would want it. And the compression wise, I'm not doing that much.
I think it's coming through your mic as well.
Yeah, we're getting a pretty heavy double on this side. Yeah, we're gonna pretty heavy double on the other.
Still. Yeah, I'll show you now exactly what I inserted, Jada. I don't know. Shouldn't be getting a double because I'm not running that and I just turned off the mic. So let's try it again. I just noticed that this
It's like it's almost like a 3-second double. It's like you're playing it through your speakers or something like that.
Well, what's happening is I am listening to audio movers myself so that I can hear Zoom and the Pro Tools session on my same output because I'm using Pro Tools with the actual Pro Tools card. So there is that repeat lag, but I'm trying to turn off the microphone so it doesn't bounce back. And I'm trying not to share audio devices. Let me make sure. Let's see, I'm on my tech right there. So
Aaron, can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, it's been pretty consistent now. So you say in order to open up her vocals more, you say do a top end EQ, so more of the higher frequency EQs. Like, is that what that means?
That yes. So
Okay.
5K and above, that's one thing. And then now the compressor that I had set up, the vertical compressor was the UAD and it wasn't working. So let me just dial this up here so you can see the other thing you do to get the vocal to open up. So you do a release, a attack of 30 to 50, do a quick release, and then just set a 2-to-1, 4-to-1 vocal on the ratio, and then adjust to taste. So it's just kind of leveling it out. Let's listen to this. All right, so then that's a good compression there. It's subtle, but it's holding the vocal in place. So then let's go to the second channel where I duplicate it, and then let's see what this compressor is doing.
And where can we go from here? I know you felt it, I felt it too. Well, I think I know I do, but I need you to know it too. It's the feeling.
So I have this set up, all buttons in on the 1176, and it's just slamming. It's just compressing hard. So then that is killing off the dynamics. That's leveling out that vocal. It's also pulling out whatever breaths. I have a very long release. So breaths, soft passages at the end, all that is getting pulled up. So then when you put both together in the track, you get this. So I'm going to mute on and off the double. So now when you have a vocal, like in your case, the female singer, she has a very soft tone. You want to keep whatever dynamics, slight dynamics she has are being kept by the soft compression on the normal vocal, but on the parallel, you're crushing the living daylights out of it, and then you're basically creating a solid bed of a loud compressed vocal for the more dynamic vocal copy to sit on. So now you're kind of normalizing her volume and then allowing more open tone and more EQ on the more subtle compression, and then that'll do a lot to keep the vocal forward. The other thing is, then you were talking about verbs. So the verbs, kind of going back to our verb class, you have, I have the ambient verb. With a nice ambient verb like that, you have some air, some space that you're putting the vocal in. This is a short phrased, short pronunciation. He's not singing out. He's just kind of putting pitch to words. So some subtle reverb like that adds decay, gives a little more open tone also. And then you can have some fun with other verbs. Where is the box verb? Do that, or we can ambient verb. Sorry, this needs to be the ambient verb, and this needs to be slap verb. All right, I got those patched backwards. Okay, here is the ambient verb. Okay, now I'm going to add the long verb, which is that slap verb that I was discussing before, where you have a early reflection starting at 81 with a pre-delay of 300 milliseconds with a tail of 3.8 seconds. And then if I mute those two verbs, I'm hearing it dry again. So then now that's completely changing the performance on it and affecting how
You
open the vocal sounds.
you said that second verb was a plate verb.
I have a ambient verb. I mean, I made it. I dialed it up to be an ambient verb. So it's the length is 680 milliseconds. So it's a very short sounding verb with a pre-delay of 2.9 seconds, and I just have that kind of subtle. And then the other verb here, the vocal slap, is the one that's 3.8 second delay, and I wouldn't categorize either of these as a plate verb. These are just verb spaces I created here. I can pull up a plate verb if you need to hear what a plate verb sounds like, though.
No, it's okay. You said plate verb, so that's why I thought.
I did? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Plate verbs, I love plate verbs on vocal, which tends to be one of my defaults. Like right now, I have this one set up as a plate verb. In every mix, I have at least one plate verb somewhere.
Is that verb on Pro Tools, or is one that you have to buy?
Both of these are from UAD. Since you guys normally get to mix at Valencia and you have access to all the UAD plugins, I normally use these to show. But you have Dverb, which is okay. What other? You should have Rverb. Maybe you have Studio Verb also. No, Studio Verb is different company. Avid. No, actually, yeah, Studio Verb is Avid. So that's one verb you should have. You might have Space, which is something else you could use. Was there a Pro Verb? I might not have downloaded it. And then I believe not our verb. Our verb is Waves. Hybrid. Maybe what's the name? Name escapes me right now.
I think the Air plugins come with it too.
Air plugins have their own verbs also, right? Reverb, Spring Verb. That's it for those two. I know that there's a couple of other Avid verb plugins that they might have available. If you're mixing at home, just use Dverb. That'll work. If not, there's a couple places where you can get free verbs also. Oh, by the way, this week and next week, make sure you guys check out all major plugin manufacturer websites. Waves is having some killer deals for plugins for $29.
I got the Isotope holiday bundle.
I was just gonna say that next. That everybody really should. You know what? I'm gonna make a point of that. Hold on. Just everybody. Isotope. Everybody go this weekend to the website and do yourself a big favor and get the holiday bundle. This. It is $1,200 worth of plugins for $50, and that includes all. These are the basic versions of their RX noise reduction. So declicker, dehum, noise suppressor. I use all those all the time, especially to remove hum on guitars or vocal clicks and stuff. Ozone elements, just a couple of things that you can use for kind of like a pseudo quickie mastering. Neutron is their EQ and compression. Nectar is some other bundles. Iris is their kind of like vocal chain. Trash is their saturation plugin. Trash 2, if anybody is a fan of Andrew Shep's, look up his Trash 2 drum bus compression settings. Really good. I definitely have some fun with it. And then you have exponential audio verbs. The Phoenix, the Excalibur, and the R2. I've had these for many, many years, and these are really good verbs. Each of these verbs, any of these verbs would be about $300 each. So all this for $50, it's like a no-brainer. You can mix a whole album with this bundle and be just fine. So that is definitely a must. Waves has some cool stuff. UAD, obviously you need software for that. You need the hardware for that. At some point, FabFilter, which you see me use, is gonna have their 25% holiday discount. But I think the best deal right now is the holiday bundle, and then Waves. Let me see if you can get it here. Oh, by the way, this series you guys should sign in. It's a really good series. I'm not sure if they have it here, but on social, Black Friday free plugin. Go here, sign up for it, and everybody's who signs up is gonna get a free plugin, a new plugin from CLA. Every Black Friday, Waves sends people who are on their newsletters a free plugin, and you have the weekend to download it and register it. So take advantage of all that, because you'll have enough plugins for you to do whatever mix you need. Okay. Getting back to Julius, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I know it was a bad mix, so I know you
Yeah,
can't
I mean
really.
that's a rough mix. So
Yeah.
a lot of it is before you start making decisions on how to EQ, compress, and add verb. The first thing I taught at the beginning of the mixing lecture on gain structure day is get a good, proper balance of all the elements. Get your gain staging correct. Make sure that everything is sounding where it needs to sound. Vocal, make it sit where it needs to sit without anything else. Then listen to it and start by EQing and figuring out what you got to carve out to make space. Then control the dynamics. Then you can add vocals, verbs to create space and effects. Okay. And a lot of that should kind of roll one thing after the other. Jada, so on vocal tracks, you didn't insert anything, but on the duplicate track, you did insert. Okay, Jada, you see what I did? There's plugins on both. Thumbs up.
So
Okay.
there's plugins on both of them, but you're using both of those, correct?
Yeah. So I have the same subtractive EQ on both.
Mm-hmm.
I have the same de-esser, but I have two different compressors. One's a subtle compressor to just kind of basically hold those peaks and louder parts of the phrase down, and then the 1176 is just crushing it to just hold the vocal. And then now I'll use both. I'll mix with both faders to get a balance as I need it. And then I have a finishing EQ post compression where I'm just cranking that top end to get that openness that I want.
Okay, got you. Would you post this one, or how are you gonna post the videos that you've been recording?
I will post them on YouTube. I ideally what I was doing is, since I'm teaching two classes, I was editing both classes together and just cutting out what was the same, and then in each class I've discussed things just slightly different and used different examples. So I was trying to put everything together in one video. So you don't have two of the same class, and then you're missing out on one thing or the other. But I started working heavily on the Christmas mixing album, and I haven't had any chance, but I finished that this week, so I should be able to get caught up.
Okay. All right. Also, Adam, I don't know if you can hear me, but these
Yeah, man.
these drums that I recorded are for our song. I'm also, I believe this Tuesday, gonna record a bass with Lacey. I have to talk to her and everything, but I'll also send you those files, so you can use those for.
All right, man.
Song.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. But that's all I can say for this class. Thank you, Aaron, for your advice.
Sure, no problem.
And I'll email you the other song that I have once I can figure out how to bounce it correctly this time. And then see if you can give me just some pointers, but that'll be all.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, thank you guys.
No problem.
Bye.
All right. So then something else. So let's kind of continue the sound effects discussion on this, and then I'll jump into how you add and use analog inserts in Pro Tools. So we got the vocal. We let's say we just have the ambient verb, and I want to hold off on that slap delay, that slap verb with a 4-second tail until the choruses. But the slap adds some depth and movement and some decay that is nice. So we can add just a mono delay. So let's have the vocal.
And I know it sounds crazy, but I felt it all before.
So that's with the ambient verb. Not sure it's there. Yep. And what I don't need the second stem, because that's for the precosti. I don't have any of that stuff here. Okay. So I create a mono aux, and I'm putting just a simple delay there that I am filtering out the top end, good amount of depth, and pretty quick rate. So there is some modulation happening. I am making it a 1/8 note delay, 40% feedback.
And I know it sounds crazy, but I felt it all before. I know it sounds sad, but when it's quiet, I let my mind go. You
Okay.
don't have to.
And then that 1/8 note tends to kind of obviously fall very rhythmically, and depending on the tempos and the phrasing, it can be at the heels of the vocal and almost stick out. So let's hear it with the guitars.
I know it sounds crazy, but I felt it all before. I know it sounds sad, but when.
Okay, so that's pretty obvious there what's happening. And then my favorite is to use a triplet phrasing, whether it be a 16th note or an 1/8 note, because it now blends a little bit differently, or it sticks out less or in a different form than just an on-beat 1/8 note quarter note. Listen to it by itself.
And I know it sounds crazy, but I felt it all before. I know it sounds sad, but when it's quiet, I let my.
So you guys hear the difference where on the quarter note, you hear that it's almost, it's on the click, and you can hear the word pronouncing twice. You can hear it as a distinct echo. On a triplet, as each word is finishing, you hear the delay and you miss the beginning of that word in the delay is being covered by the phrase, so you just hear the verb, the delay effect. Triplet.
I know it sounds crazy, but I felt this, I felt it all before.
Quarter.
I know it sounds sad, but when it's quiet, I let my mind go.
Triplet.
You don't have to know what to say. I can bear the thought.
And within the music, that'll make a difference on how it's perceived. Let's start with quarter.
I know it sounds crazy, but I felt this, I felt it all before.
Triplet.
I know it sounds sad, but when it's quiet, I let my mind go. You don't
Quarter.
have to know what to say. I can bear the thought that I'm the one
Triplet.
who's pushing you farther away with my fears from all of those years.
No mono delay.
I know it sounds crazy, but I felt this, I felt it all before.
On.
I know it sounds sad, but when it's quiet, I let my mind go. You don't have.
So now with that triplet delay with a good amount of feedback on it, so you sort of get a slight reverb effect to it, tail to it. It's not pushing the vocal back in the mix like you would with verb, but it doesn't draw out that vocal tail and make it sound like an effect. It just kind of wraps itself around the vocal nicely. So then now let's start manipulating that a little bit more. Now you can do a slight pitch shift to that vocal, to the delay on the vocal. This is just 11 cents up.
I know it sounds crazy, but I felt this, I felt it all before. I know it sounds sad, but when it's quiet, I let my mind go. You don't have to know what to say. I can bear the thought that I'm.
Can anybody hear that difference? Are you hearing what I'm trying to achieve with it? Yeah? Go ahead, Adam. What are you hearing?
I don't know if I can actually describe it. I may have to hear it again.
So because I am shifting the pitch up 11 cents, which is still to your ear, maybe slightly sharp, but it's behind it, so it doesn't really stick out as sharp, I am creating a pitch separation from this delay, shifting it up. So now the delay, even though I still have it on the triplet, it's a little clearer. Now it almost sounds like a background vocal echoing you because there's a difference in pitch. But without the difference in pitch, it just masks itself behind it. So if you want it to be heard and now take it a step toward an effect, you pitch shift it up. So I'll do it back and forth. Just pay attention to the words on the delay, and do you hear them more or less? Do you hear the vocal lift behind the lead vocal? Okay, so off.
I know it sounds crazy, but I felt this, I felt it all before. I know it sounds sad, but when it's quiet, I let my mind go. You don't have to know what to say. I can bear the thought that I'm the one is pushing you farther away with my.
Is that a little clearer? And part of what happens also, now that the delay is not the same copy of the lead because I altered the pitch, so it almost is a different performance. Now there's that separation, and you avoid the comb filtering that you might get from a verb or from a delay of that lead vocal, because the performance again is different. So then now let's add the guitars back in and hear it with and without that pitch. So start without the pitch.
I know it sounds crazy, but I felt this, I felt it all before.
On.
I know it sounds sad, but when it's quiet, I let my mind go. You don't have to know what to say.
On.
I can bear the thought that I'm the one
Off.
who's pushing you farther away.
On.
With my fears from all of those years, it's all in my.
It also gives you a sensation of the top end being more vocal, of being more open. It almost brightens up the vocal by pitch shifting that verb up. And it's weird to think about it as an EQ, but it is. You're creating a shift up to that vocal, and it is EQing, tilting that vocal echo up. Okay, everybody clear on that till now? So then now let's leave that in, but now let's take that a little more forward. Now let's add a compressor. So now what's going to happen is you're going to compress the vocal before it hits the pitch shifter and the delay. So now when he's doing these vocal phrases, and he has these subtle dynamic push on different syllables, that's going to get flattened out. So now you're going to get a consistent bed of delay with no syllables sticking out at all at one particular time or the other. And then that creates a different level of separation between the lead and the delay effect. It separates it more than the pitch shift is doing, but it also now allows the lead vocal to move forward and backward dynamically within the mix without the delay moving forward and backwards also, and keeping and kind of forcing the lead vocal to stay in this acoustic space because it all moves together. When the delay stays back here and this moves, it allows that vocal to kind of reach out to you and pull you into the space that it's in. Listening. Without the effects, without the guitars, and no compression.
I know it sounds crazy, but I felt this, I felt it all before. I know it sounds sad, but when it's quiet,
It's coming through your mic too.
All right, now that I got it dialed up a little better, I'll start turning on and off, starting with off. Let me loop this section here because he pushes in a couple of syllables. It'll be good, and just pay attention to how the delay sticks to those syllables and doesn't stick to those syllables. And let me just do this phrase for now. Listening. You guys hearing that difference?
We don't hear that because it was muted.
You don't hear what?
One you just played.
Are you guys not hearing it through audio movers? Sheng, did you go to the link on for audio movers?
Oh yeah. So like I didn't get a link because I logged in again because like the Zoom chat was out.
Here you go again.
All right. Thanks. Sorry.
All right, so then let me unmute the guitars. And then let's hear the difference with and without compression. Without compression.
I click. Sorry, I click the link, but I still hear nothing from the link.
What browser are you using? Safari? Sheng, what internet browser are you using? Safari? You gotta,
Sorry. Yeah. Yes.
so Safari doesn't like audio movers for some reason.
Okay. No problem. I do download Chrome as well. Let me use that one instead.
Chrome or Firefox has been working better. I have no idea why Safari's not working. All right, everybody heard that difference now? Let me know when you're ready, Shane, and I'll play it one more time.
Okay, got you. Yeah, give me a minute. Give me a second.
Ready?
It's pushing you.
Just heard it. Thanks. Yeah. Let me listen for a second. Got you. Thanks for waiting, guys.
All right, so then now, so those are three different ways you can now manipulate that, two different ways you can manipulate that mono delay to make it stick out more or less. And that gives you, that creates a depth for that lead vocal just center down the middle. You're not making the vocal wider. You're not making it take more space within the stereo image. You're just creating depth back and some dynamic movement to it. Okay. Now let's take a different step and say, I want the vocal to have width. So now we can take, instead of the of having a mono delay, let's take that same delay and turn it into a mono stereo. Let's copy all the same settings. So feedback is 14. Low pass is 25.54. This is 14, 25.54. Let's keep it synced. Let's do eighth note triplet, eighth note triplet. Rate is 165, 1.65. Depth is 15. 1.65, depth is 15. I think that matches everything's 100, 100. Okay, so now I'll switch between the mono delay and then the stereo mono delay. Start with just the mono. Okay, so now we hear that delay emanating outward, right? And that now sets the mood and the space differently. We might not want that mono delay to be that wide. We don't want it bouncing far left and right. So we might do -50 and 50 panning. So we're keeping it about here instead of all the way out. Okay, let's hear that difference. I like that better, but let's make it a little tighter. Let's do 35.
Oh, by the way, Professor, can I see a posture again? Like you showed, like it's supposed to be somewhere and not where. I only see the latter one. I do not see the prayer one. Like you said, like you use your hand to do the posture. You said like do it this way instead of like open widely. The gesture or the west or like all the posture you just.
So the panning,
Yeah.
the panning of the mono delay, which is now a stereo delay, instead of having it panned out 100 and 100, I put it 50-50. Now I change it to 35-35, and then let's listen what that does.
Okay. All right.
So 35-35. Fifty again. 50-50, here we go. So I think 50-50 is almost still a little too wide. 35 was a little too narrow. Let's just do let's do 45. For some reason it's not letting me dial it up by hand, so I'll just do it this way. Okay, listen to it again. Cool. So I like that. Now we've created a small room, small narrow hallway where he's singing down from. But then now the pitch shift effect that I created for the mono delay is doing its cool thing. But what if we pitch shift the left and the right channel different? And now we're creating a little chorused a chorused a chorused stereo delay. So now instead of pitch shifting it pre the delay, let's pitch shift it post delay, and let's do 11 cents on one channel. Let me not link it, and then do negative 11 cents. Sorry, I just specifically said don't link it. Oh, sorry, wrong link. Negative 11. All this stays the same. So the right side is pitch shifted up 11 cents. The right side is pitch shifted down 11 cents. The right side is pitch shifted up 11 cents. And then I'll switch between the stereo pitch and the mono pitch. So let's start with mono pitch. So now the difference becomes, instead of you with the mono pitch, instead of that giving a lift and a rise on that delay, and you hear the vocal being elevated up, giving it some height. Now with the stereo pitch, it's making that vocal sound wider by pulling out on it on a horizontal line. Okay. And you're losing some of that kind of height, but maybe that's what you want. Okay, so that here are the different scenarios to try, whether it's a mono slap delay or a stereo slap delay with pitch. Okay, any questions till now? Would you be able to use a stereo with plugin too if you want this to be wider? Yes, Absolutely. You can do something like BX Solo, which is a free MS plugin, and this makes your stereo width go 100, 150, 200%. So let's put it 150. Now here's the thing, Jada. If I now pan that delay 100 and 100, you're going to hear the voice kind of be wider, but you're going to hear less of the delay effect because the guitars on left and right are going to mask it. So if you're trying to get the vocal to just kind of have this big open kind of wider tone, but without you necessarily hearing the effects of it, that's cool. Now you put an MS widener. Bless you. Sorry, I have a dog here sneezing behind me. Now when you put the MS, it's gonna take whatever the stereo image is there. It's gonna almost dry up the center image and deplete it or reduce it, the amount of delay you hear on it. And you're gonna hear it more over here. But again, if it's being masked by the guitars, then you might not necessarily benefit in the way you think you will. So let's try that. Vocal and guitar. Let me mute, and I'll leave the stereo delay, stereo pitch, and I'll just bypass the MS on and off, and let's hear it without guitars first. So if you guys have headphones, you're really hearing the difference, because now the delay sounds here and here, but when I put the MS, it sounds like it's really like 90 degrees and almost behind you, which is a cool effect. Here you can hear that width change clearly. There's no guitars there. What might happen now is with the guitars there, you won't hear it as clearly. When you add the MS, those delays might actually the MS delays will be farther out past the left and right guitar, so it might be a little more audible. But then now if you start adding other verbs and you start adding strings or something else, that width effect might not be noticeable. If it's an acoustic guitar and a vocal and you're doing this, that might be some cool experimenting for you to do. Okay, so just has to do with what's happening in the mix. So now let me add the guitars and let me turn on and off the MS, and then see if you hear the delay a little bit more past the guitars with the MS. You hear the difference, Jada? Okay. Do you like that difference? Is that kind of what you were expecting? Okay, cool. Good. I have a couple different MS plugins. There's the more sophisticated version from BX, where you can actually now gradually push it out. And then there is Isotope, has a free MS called Imager, where you can do the same thing, and it has a stereoizer effect for it, which is cool. So you can put this on a mono effect and then simulate some stereo width. And there's another really good plugin by Dr. MS. He does a really sophisticated MS stereo spreader. And there's several other manufacturers that everybody's doing an MS now. But the cool thing is the BX, this BX or the Ozone, it, believe it or not, it has a different tone to each other. The BX tends to sound a little brighter and edgier. The MS tends to smooth out and maybe dull out a little bit the top end. So if you want to have that stick out more, use the BX. If you want a little more subtle, use that. And it just depends the effect that you're trying to go for. Not to add more to the complications of all this. But then I will sometimes have a verb, and then I will have a delay, and that delay gets sent to that verb. But before I send it to the verb, I'll put an MS plugin, pan it out so that now that delay is wider than the original image, and then that gets sent to the verb. So you have the width of the verb, and now the delay sent to the verb pushes the image farther out. So you almost have like a pyramid or a triangle effect where you have the lead vocal, the verb, and then the delayed verb behind it, and that's happening in time. And that's really getting far out with some cool layering that you can do. I might actually have an example of that on a mix I did recently. All right, let me see what other multi-effects I did. Where's time? Okay, we'll jump on something else now. Okay. Oh, I had set up flanger on the background vocals. This is just waves flanger. So again, the flanger, like I explained in the last class, flanger tends to kind of make the instrument stick out because of that comb filtering. Let's hear it against the vocal. So adding flange isn't necessarily making the vocal sound bigger. It's making the vocal stick out against the lead vocal. When you add a chorus, you're essentially doubling the amount of vocals that you're doing. So you're making it sound bigger because there's more of them. This is another really good free plugin, Icon Digital Multiply. I use this all the time. You can set up the modulation rate, the amplification rate, the frequency modulation, the amplitude modulation, how many voices, whether it's 2 to 6, stereo width, and then what pre-delay. And now you can EQ your chorusing, and then you can have a dry wet however you need to. So since I have this inserted, I'm going to leave the dry all the way there. So on and off, here we go. Now with the vocal. Okay, you guys hearing that difference, right? So now the vocals sound like they're kind of spreading apart more. It's thicker. It's like a bigger kind of wall of sound type of effect. Then you can have fun and just have both on. Okay, so then now one effect until the other, now you're kind of blending the effects and the results that you're getting. Now, here is some of the effects I had printed from the PCM 96 in the A room. Just kind of messing around with the difference between an actual analog, an actual external outboard gear effects unit versus a plugin. Let me just kind of scroll through these a little bit. This is a chorus effect. Second chorus. This one's not going to work here because I was trying to have some fun with it in class. Then here's the precocity. And because these verbs algorithms just have this just such nice, open, smooth, rich texture to it. All right. So let's say you have your mix done. Everything is cool. You want to use one of the really nice pieces of outboard gear on a mix. Maybe you want to just kind of compress the whole mix a little bit. You can do that on the console. You know, you have you have an actual insert per channel, but you also have an insert on the master fader that you can do, right? But you can imitate that same setup here in Pro Tools. You go to setup, you go to IO, you go to insert, and then in my studio, channels 1 through 16 are going to my analog console. I have another 8 channels of analog free and 8 channels of digital AES EBU free. My 9 and 10 is my DAC playback. The 11 and 12 is the Eventide DSP 7000. So I use that as a digital insert. And then I have an LA22 compressor, which is a stereo URI compressor. And then I have the Shadow Hills Van de Graaff stereo mastering compressor. And I have the Silver Bullet line driver. All just permanently patched in. So then you basically create a new path, mono or stereo, add channels, whatever else you need to do. You select where you want it to show up. Let's say I have nothing there, I put it there. You go to the patch bay in the studio, and then you go in, let's say this is 1 through 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. You go to the patch bay, 19 and 20 out, into the analog outboard gear, and then out of the analog gear, patch it back into input 19 and 20. And now you've created basically a loop. Just like you would insert on a console, you're inserting it in Pro Tools. And now that IO, those 2 channels are dedicated to that. Okay, let me delete this. And then what happens is you go to put a plugin, and instead of doing plugin or plugin, you go to your IO setup, and here are your analog inserts and digital inserts that you've created. And then it just shows up like this. There's nothing to it. There's no bypass button for an analog or digital insert. It's on or off, and you turn it off by holding Control and Command and clicking on it, and you make it inactive, just like you do in a plugin, and you make it active, or you could right click it and make it inactive. Okay, so this is the mix. Let's get to that verse, and then I'll turn on and off the compressor. I'll insert in and out this is going to be the Van de Graaff mastering compressor. I have it set right now for a track that I'm working, so it's probably going to be a little too compressed, but you should hear a tone change. Here we go. Go ahead.
By the way, no, by the way, Professor. Yeah. So for female backup, if we use the delay for metal flanger, is I saw you pick the waveform as a triangle. So is that a better is that a better waveform to use, like to do the female vocal, to do the backup vocal?
Sorry,
Yeah, like the.
I didn't understand your question. Sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah, no problem. So because I just changed my Apple iPhone to DT770, I hear more like when you play when you play the from last few takes. So like I do see like the waveform you use on the plugin, which named like a flanger, like you use a triangle waveform. So is that a better waveform to use for backup?
Oh, you're talking about on the flange.
Yeah.
Here, it's not that it's
Yeah.
better or not. It's just it's actually, this is probably just what the default was, and I just played around with the default. The triangle, the sign, and the sign are just going to give you different results. You're going to hear the triangle more because it's a peak it gets to a peak to an extreme and then quickly gets out of it. The sine wave is going to smoothly get in and out of that peak. So it's a tone difference, and it's just you playing around with it.
Okay, yeah, because I hear more like from another headphone, I hear like a little bit like a little bit fade in or fade out sound, like before the vocal pops out. Yeah. Okay, got you.
So let me play this. I turned off the camera. So without the insert. So you could hear the Pro Tools adding in and out the compressor, because you could hear the glitch of it just kind of pausing in and out. And then the the compressor is set a little higher to compensate for the gain, so you hear the mix just a little bit louder with it on. But hopefully you guys heard some of that difference. It just kind of, the Van der Graaf actually adds some nice depth and color tone to really kind of thicken everything up a little bit. Okay, and then let me make sure I'm covering the last bit of this. Sorry, over here. So we went over plugin versus hardware on effects, and we did analog inserts. Okay, cool. And I think that kind of covers everything for mixing and you guys utilizing what's at Valencia if you're going to go there, and you guys taking advantage of what Pro Tools gives you to do mixing also. Any questions or any topics you guys want me to go back to and just kind of refresh something?
I think I'm okay.
Awesome. All right, good. All right, so then next week there's no class because it's Thanksgiving. Following week, we're basically just gonna go over how to deliver the project and make sure everybody's clear on how to get all the data to me correctly on the 10th, and we should be good to go.
May I talk to you after class, Professor?
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
All right. Thank you so much. I just picked up the Isotope Holiday Bundle, so thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Very welcome.